Porsche is easily my favorite car brand. In my books, they are the #1 car brand out there. And today we are lucky enough to have a 2025 992.2 911 Carrera finished in this beautiful Cartagena yellow. And right now we're gonna hop in this and see what changes there are, but let's get right into it. My name's Trent and you're watching God Next. Taking our first steps into the 911, I noticed, honestly, not much has really changed compared to the 992.1, but the first thing I will notice before we can even start the car is that Porsche got rid of like the little turn dial key, but they actually installed a push to start, which I'm seeing a lot more. They've done that on the new Cayennes, the Macan Electrics, they've seen it on the Taycan. It looks all the same, but to start it, just push the button, starts up pretty standard, basically like every other car nowadays. It's one thing I don't care for. I thought it was special that Porsche had, turns still, but they still kept the push start button on the left-hand side. So that's still a cool tribute. Now, this isn't a full, new generation of the 911. This is a major facelift. It's the 992.2. Porsche did that same thing with the 991s. So there are a couple key differences on the exterior, on the interior, and we'll get to that, but let's get this thing out on the road and we'll talk about this stuff in a second. As we are now on the road with this car, it's honestly, the 911 is easily my favorite car. It's just, there's something about these cars that are so special, and Porsche does a great job. This car looks like every other generation 911. They have the same fly line, but that's what Porsche intends to do with these cars. So I think this thing just looks amazing. It's iconic. It's an iconic design, and I know people say it's boring, like they don't change their designs, but if it's not broken, why fix it? Like, everybody loves these cars because they're just iconic. These things are super great on performance, and I think Porsche's done a great job with that. But with the 992.2, there are some subtle changes to the exterior. The headlights have a slightly different design inside the actual headlight hub, but it looks really good. You can't really tell during the daytime. At nighttime, you'll notice it a lot more. But I also noticed when I was looking around this car is that the front bumpers and the rear bumpers, they have a little bit more sharper edges. It's not as rounded off, as much of a bubble as the 992.1s, but I think that really accentuates this car a lot. It makes it look a little more sporty, a little more aggressive, but it's still a 911, and that's what's really important. The front grille's got a slight change. A lot of it is, they're very minimal. Like, if you ask the average person, who's not really a car person, to tell the difference, they're not gonna notice these differences. There's nothing crazy, but to car people like me, like you guys watching this, you guys will notice it. They're good changes. I really like what Porsche did with it. I really like how they actually did the tail light bar in the back. They made it to where it's more of an indent instead of just the glass covering it. The Cayennes have the same thing. It's more built into the car, and it looks just fantastic. The Porsche symbol in the back, just everything about this car looks great. The next thing I want to talk about on the 992 is that their color palette. This Cartagena yellow is a normal standard color on the 992.2's color palette. So you can get this from here until basically whenever they discontinue it. It's just like the shark blue that came out with the 992.1s. So I think this is a great color. It's a lot different than the shark blue, and it stands out. It's unique. I like that about it. That's basically it for the exterior. There's not much of a change. This car is still your iconic rear engine car, so if you do want something for daily usage, I would recommend this car, but that's not why you buy this car. You buy this car because it's fun to drive, it's fun to look at, it's a fun car. But let's talk about what is a little bit different on the interior. We already talked about the start button, that being a button now and not actually having the turn key. That's the direction every car brand is going nowadays. A big change I did notice is basically as soon as I started the car up is that this one has a fully digital gauge cluster, and you could select between seeing the map on here. You can adjust between a lot of things just like you can previously. But the 992.1s did have more of the analog gauge clusters. It actually had a built-in part for it. It was a lot of digital stuff in it, but this one now fully digital. The infotainment system looks the exact same. Not much has changed there. The center console is pretty much the same. I noticed there's a couple indents on the center console where it just sharper lines. Kind of, to me, it looks like it replicates the front bumper, the rear bumper. Like, it's just another accent. Besides that, everything in here feels pretty much the same. The steering wheel, nothing really changed. The little dial on the steering wheel, which allows you to select between your gear modes. It's got a red button now, so before it didn't have the red button. You only got that on like the GT cars, but it looks really good. I really like that little feature. The red pops a lot, especially on a black interior car such as this one. The main thing I want to talk about is just driving this car. Porsche has just been one of those iconic cars. And I remember I've worked at plenty of dealerships in my life, and I always wanted to, I'd see the 911s, I'm like, man, I want to drive one. So I used to work at a Nissan dealership, and somebody there had a 911. I always wanted to drive it. So getting to drive a car like this, it's been my dream. I remember playing video games as a kid with my brother, and I wasn't a big Porsche person then, but as I grew up, started going to motorsports and stuff like that, the 911 has just stood out, and this thing is a beast on whether it's the streets, the racetrack, honestly anything. This thing is just a track monster. It does everything you need it to do. Besides off-roading, you'll have to get a Dakar for that. The acceleration is great, picks up really fast, the steering's super smooth, you don't have any lag input. It's honestly one of the best driving experiences I have, and I've driven plenty of exotic cars, and there's nothing quite like driving a Porsche. And I might sound a lot of pretty biased, and I might sound like just your typical Porsche fan, but I do appreciate all cars for what they are, but there's just something different when you're driving something like this compared to Lamborghinis and stuff. Like, those are fun cars, they sound amazing, but I would take this because it's comfortable. It's a comfortable car to drive. Like, you could daily this if you wanted to. It's super comfortable. The cabin noise is relatively quiet, and you've got all the creature comforts you could want in this car. We've got cooled seats, we've got heated seats, we've got, you know, great AC in here. And if I want my car to be a little bit louder, there's also right here on below the infotainment system, there are these little switches, toggle switches, that allow me to adjust the sound of the exhaust. There's just a lot that you can do on a car like this, and I think that's what makes this car so much fun, is that there's so much customization you can do to these cars. Whether you buy a car from the dealership as is, or if you build your own car, you could just add so much. And that's what Porsche does great about taking care of their customers and just making an enjoyable driving experience. If you ever get the opportunity to drive a car like this, I would take it. And if you ask me if this car is worth the money, 100%. It's an expensive car, yes, I get that. If I had the money, I would be buying one of these, 100%. It's a piece of art on the road. That's what I will say about it. But that's all I'm gonna say. I know I might sound like, you know, a Porsche glazer. That's fine, I'll take it. It's a fun car. I like the design changes Porsche did, exterior, interior wise. It looks good. If I could change one thing about it, it'd be getting rid of the start stop button, but that's the only thing I would change. Well, there you guys have it. Overall, I think this is a beautiful car. I think the 911 is just, it's a work of art. It's a great car, and it's definitely worth the money. Let us know what you guys think about the 992.2. And if you guys want to see more videos like this, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next video.